Now it's time for another Board Game Brawl preview with Nick Minahan, sponsored by BoardGameBliss.com. Hey now, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and today we're going to be taking a look at a game that is currently seeking funding on Kickstarter. That game is called Cabals, and is from Key Games. Now, if you like what you see throughout the rest of this video, I'm going to encourage you to go to the official Kickstarter project page and hopefully consider supporting it. There's going to be a link down in the bottom description section of the video, and also if you click the little icon up in the top corner of your screen, that will take you to the Kickstarter page as well. Find out more information that I can hopefully tell you here, and hopefully consider backing the project. Now, what is Cabals? Now, first and foremost, this is a physical implementation of a digital game. You can already play this game on your Android and iOS devices. It's a deck building game. When I say deck building, I mean building a deck ahead of time game, not a game like Dominion, where you are fielding a team of occult mysticists and their troops during the early 20th century. That's hence the name of the game. Each different character or hero that you get to play as during the game belongs to a secret cabal, not like the radio show, who has mystical powers and has different troops and spells under their command, and they are trying to take over their opponent cabal's stronghold or get enough notoriety, hence victory points, to make that not even matter anymore. They become powerful enough on their own. Of course, it's a little more complicated than that. So let me go ahead and give you a brief look at how the game would be played in a two-player game with a prototype version of the game. So what you see in the final version can be significantly different. I just want to tell you that now. Then we're going to come back and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, I'm going to give you a quick rundown of Cabals. This is the two-player setup for the game. This is just a prototype version of the game. I will reiterate that as well, so some things are going to be different in the final version. I just want to give you a taste for what the game is going to be like. So first off, you're going to set up the player boards along with some extra boards in approximately the kind of setup that you see here. So each player is going to have a stronghold board with their particular stronghold on it, and then you'll have these other ancillary boards around it, each with different icons showing bonuses and deployment areas, and so on. Each player is also going to have a hero card with a special ability. So here we have Morgana Le Fay, whose ability is 2R, once per game, target unit gains +1 power, and draw a card, and then some flavor text. And over on the other side, my opponents for this little mock match is Baba Yaga, who also has her own special ability as well. And then you have all these other resource tokens, which you'll keep separate and off to the side, such as resources. You have damage, and you have power, and victory point tokens, and so on and so forth. You'll also have your own deck with your own set of relic tokens, which you'll keep off to the side. And I'm using these pre-constructed decks, although there is a deck building aspect to the game you can do as well. There are also a lot of other characters you can play as, like Queen Mab, and Franz Townsend, and Carl Maria Villigit, Tarnari, Fulcanelli, and Rasputin himself. They all have their own different decks and cabals that they are a part of that you can use, and also make your own decks for them with the deck building rules of the game. So each player is going to start off by drawing 7 cards from their deck. That's going to constitute their starting hand. Now on subsequent turns, you can actually draw extra cards depending on the card symbols that are underneath your control. So simply by virtue of having this stronghold, that's going to enable you to do these icons. Mean number 1, you'll get to draw a card every round. These indicate resources, so you'll be able to take at least those resource tokens to spend on your turn. And then this always counts as a deployment spot for your troops. And since this is your stronghold, the goal of the game is to either take for your opponent to take your stronghold or vice versa, or to be the first person to gain 5 victory point tokens, which are these tokens here. As soon as someone gains 5, they'll also win the game if it is their turn and they're eligible to win. So let me run you through the quick steps of how a game round is going to work, what you're going to do on your turn. So first is you'll draw your card. You'll have your starting cards. After every round after the first, you're going to draw a card based on how many card symbols you have underneath your control. Then you're going to gain resources in the same way. You'll always have 2, but if you're able to gain other areas of the boards, connected boards that have the resource symbol, you'll be able to get even more symbols than that, hence the +1 there. Then you're going to go to victory points. Now this is where during the course of the game, you may be able to put your relic tokens out onto the board. If at any point you have more relic tokens on the board than your opponent does, you're going to be eligible to get a victory point. The next step would be readying your relics. Now, this prototype version of the game doesn't come with the relic card necessary to show you this, but essentially what you're doing is moving them from an unroute step into your reliquary, which makes them available to put out onto the board like I've already kind of done in that mock example. Next, you go to readying your units. Now, a lot of the cards that are in your deck that you start off with and that you'll be drawing from are you're going to be able to put down onto the board, deploy them as units. Now, whenever you move them or take actions with them, you're going to have to exhaust them. Now, this step of the game will let you unexhaust them and get them ready for use again. Now, while we're at it, let me go ahead and show you what the breakdown of these unit cards is. Up in the top corner, you have the cost of the card. This is how many resources you have to expend in order to actually summon this card down onto the board. Then you have the power and the health. This is how much damage they can deal, and this is the hit points that they have. Then their name, of course, Fuka, and then you have their special ability. In this case, it's upgrade for a resource, in which case he is going to get an extra power and an extra health. The next phase of your turn is the main phase, and this is where the bulk of the actions are going to take place. You can do as many actions as you want, as much as you want, and even double up on some actions. And there's a list of different ones that you can do. So, for instance, one of them is simply deploying one of your cards down onto the board into one of your spots that allows for deployment. You can also deploy here if you were to conquer that spot. Next would be moving one of your units. You exhaust it and then move it orthogonally to another space. If this goes over an opponent's relic, you actually will destroy that relic, and it also is considered conquering that territory. If you move on to your opponent's stronghold, you will actually win the game, but that's easier said than done. You can also use the abilities on your creatures, which will exhaust it. You can use the special ability of your hero. For instance, like I said before, Morgana Le Fay's is to spend 2 resources once per game. Target unit gains +1 power, and you get to draw a card. Or you can cast one of the spell cards from your hand. Now, spell cards are going to be cast in a similar fashion to your units. You'll pay the resource cost up in the top corner. And by the way, anytime you see a symbol over in the other corner, that is the loyalty symbol for those cards. That's the Cabal that they belong to. And then you'll do the effect. So this one says decompose. You can destroy target unit. The unit's owner gains its cost as resources. You have Sid, which says you may, or Sheed, which says you may immediately place a relic in any uncontrolled non-stronghold tile from your reliquary, which is going to let you put the relics out there. Then you have the non-shape change, which is remove all tokens on target unit. That unit loses its abilities and counts as having 4 power and 4 health. Place a change token on the unit. Lastly, for this phase, you have combat. Now, let's say in this little mock example here that I have a fresh unit here, and I have an opponent has one of their creatures in this spot. As an action during this main phase, let's say that Baba Yaga here is going to attack with her deployed unit. You will attack a creature, and they will deal their damage to each other simultaneously, putting wound markers on as applicable. Now, in this case, I'm dealing 4 damage, so it's actually going to kill this creature, although it was able to deal 3 to mine, or to my opponent's, the Baba Yaga's. So this is going to be destroyed immediately, and since Baba Yaga's creature was attacking, it's actually going to move onto this tile. Now, in this example, this relic was here, which means that that relic gets immediately destroyed. Now, this is just one example, and you can have multiple units out on the board. In one main phase, you can attack with multiple units, but once you do so, they're going to be exhausted or they might be destroyed. And once you're done doing whatever you can possibly do with all of your units and with all the cards in your hand, and with whatever meager resources you have access to, then you can end your main phase. And when that happens, play goes to your opponent, and they get to do all the same things you just did. They gain resources, they gain cards, they summon units, they put them on the board, they move them around, they try to take over your territory, they try to destroy your relics, and they try to destroy your creatures as well, all in an effort in order to either get your stronghold or to be the first person to get 5 victory points by having the most relics on the board during that phase of the game. Then they will win on their turn. That is a very quick rundown of Cabals with a prototype version of the game. Now, let's get to my final thoughts. Now, if you've played the digital version of Cabals, then I think that this is a no-brainer. If you're already into board games and card games, which I assume you are if you're watching this now, then definitely check out the digital version. If you already have and you like that one, you got to go for this one too, because it is the same game. I mean, it is very, very faithful to that translation, with, of course, exceptions made for the physical format in order to make that work. So I believe it is very, very faithful to the original. But let's talk about the game in and of itself. This is a type of game that mixes Magic the Gathering style deck building ahead of time to make the best deck you possibly can, to get synergies going, to work to have good troops working well with the spells that you have at hand, together with the special power of your hero. But also, it's not just like boom, 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 throw out spells, and here's a monster, and we attack, and so forth. This is also an area control game. You want to dominate different parts of the board that you also assemble ahead of time with different types of boards, and then try to get different areas of the board to get more resources, to get more cards, to get better spots to deploy your units, to get them more strategically closer to your opponent, all in an effort to either put out as many relic tokens as you possibly can and just earn those victory points as quickly as you can, or to take over your opponent's stronghold, which means there's different ways to play the game. There's just having those two victory conditions means that you have different strategies and different ways to go about doing so. You can just play pure control, just say, fine, have your stronghold. I'm going to dominate as much as I possibly can over here, shore up my defenses, go for those victory points. Or you can just say, you know what, I'm going to just cannonball run. Get me over to that stronghold. I don't care. Kamikaze. Put out as many troops as I possibly can. Rip through your defenses as fast as I possibly can. Get your victory points. Who cares? I'm taking your stronghold. That gives a lot of depth to the game because it gives different playstyles. Totally different playstyles. Also, speaking of that, every Cabal plays differently. They all have their own strengths and weaknesses. They all have their own types of spells, cards, units, special powers that dictate how they are going to be used. One faction might be more, one Cabal might be more defensive. One of them might be more purely offensive spells. One might put a lot of emphasis on getting out their units as easily as possible and flooding the board with them. There's a lot of different areas here that you can explore, and different play styles and just different methods of operation depending on who you want to play as. And I didn't even touch on the deck building aspects and how you can build your own deck ahead of time. You can mix together the different types of abilities and spells that you think are going to work best depending on your opponent. There is a lot of replayability and depth to the game if you're willing to explore those different facets. So, for people who like strategic games like Magic the Gathering or other kind of collectible card games, but without having to worry about playing the same game over and over again, as so many of those games are, wanting an innovative version of that, one that also has this interesting area control and territory control, which so many board gamers like, then definitely you want to give this one a shot, especially if you like the original digital version of Cabals. You're more than halfway there already, so you definitely want to give this one a look. And if so, go to the Kickstarter page. I'm going to have a link at the bottom of, or down in the description section of the video, and then if you click the little symbol up in the top corner, that will pull down a card that will take you to the Kickstarter page. Find out more information. Don't take my word for it. Hopefully consider supporting Cabals from Key Games. Thank you so much for watching. Take care. Thanks for watching. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Patreon. And make sure to check out our sponsor, Board Game Bliss, where you can find an amazing selection of games from around the world. BoardGameBliss.com. Thanks for your support.